All right, quite a few people who have dialed in. Thank you very much for joining, and let's slowly get started with today's webinar. As you all know, the session for today will focus on the client book of record and how a client book of record can help asset managers to manage the distribution network. And the speakers today, by introducing ourselves briefly, Marina and I, we've been working together for many years, I think around 15 years or so. So shared background, working at a fund distribution platform, and kind of helped to build that up. And when a lot of the consolidation of the fund platforms was over, we were thinking about finding ourselves a new home and a new challenge. And instead of focusing our efforts with technology, systems, tools on distributors, we are now helping asset managers to do more or less the same, structuring the distribution data, managing or helping to manage the fees, the calculations, some AML and KYC duties, and so on and so forth. And this is going to be the topic for today, to give you a quick overview of the agenda. The first part that we're going to cover is a little bit the problem statement, if you like. So we're going to take a look at the challenges that most of the asset managers are facing in 2026 and that they've been facing for many years. We will also go a little bit into the basic understanding of what is a client book of record and how can a client book of record help asset managers to structure this distribution data. Then in terms of self-promotion, we will of course also show you a little bit how our solution looks and feels like. So we're going to give you an overview of Adjuto and what Adjuto is capable of doing. And then hopefully we still have a little bit of time within this 30 to 45 minutes webinar, where we can also take a bit of a look into the required investments, maybe some of the resources that are needed, and how we could potentially help you to build a business case to invest in a client book of record if you have not one of these systems as of today. So with that said, I think we can go to the next slide already. And this is really a brief recap of the problems that most of the asset managers that we've talked to over the last couple of years shared with us. And those are industry-wide problems. We would say almost every asset manager is facing this in one way or another. And to just go through a few of them, we've seen this very often, that a lot of asset managers are operating in silo systems, or some in-house built legacy systems, or some Excel spreadsheets. And very often these systems are not connected, which means you have data coming in from one source, you need to manually extract it, manually upload it into another system, then extract it again, manipulate it, and process the data, and process it further downstream. And all of this is happening in outdated and disjointed systems. So there's a lot of inefficiencies that a lot of the asset managers have reported to us. Another challenge, and we've seen this firsthand when we were working at a fund distribution platform, are of course all the omnibus accounts and the consolidation amongst the fund distribution platforms, which took place over the last couple of years. And in many ways, the consolidation is good. It works for asset managers because you have less touch points. The problem, though, comes in, of course, when you have these omnibus accounts that you don't understand, or when you have data that is coming in different files, different formats, and different frequencies. And then you need to standardize and normalize that data. And that, of course, takes a lot of time and resources to just structure this data in a meaningful way before you can actually use the data and process the data and operate the data. Another challenge reported by most of the asset managers is that they have relatively isolated teams. So when you think about the client book of records, that's usually a domain that sits in the middle or back office in the operational teams from the asset managers. But of course, there are other teams that could make use of the data, and also other teams that need to operate that data. So thinking about adding a new distributor or adding a new platform, and usually you need to do the AML and KYC on it, and you need to have compliance involved in it. If you want to sign a distribution agreement, you have the legal team involved in it. And then, of course, you have your front office, your sales, and your client service providing reporting to the intermediaries or the distributors. You have sales trying to increase the account relationship, the overall relationship with that particular account. And all of that is more efficient if you have everyone operating on a single source of truth and everyone operating within a single system. Another big challenge for most of the asset managers are all the manual processes that you might have, especially when it comes to further downstream processes. So there's, of course, the client book of record, which is structuring the data, but then once it is structured, you also need to run certain calculations, and you need to run certain processes with it. And the more manual processes you have, the more risks you are running, and we'll talk about a few of those just a little bit later on. And the last part that most of the asset managers have reported to us is that due to the legacy systems and the fragmented operating infrastructure that they are operating with, so all the disjointed systems, it is relatively difficult for most of the asset managers to get a good and true understanding how profitable certain relationships are, and where they actually have cross-selling and upselling opportunities. So this access to real-time management information is one of the challenges that most of the asset managers have reported. If we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And those are really just industry problems. There are, of course, other problems that we see all around us. So when you look into the regulatory requirements, of course, there is a very clear need and demand to have this end-to-end transparency. We have already mentioned the consolidation of platforms, and you've seen this in the news recently. Some Spanish platform is becoming a bit more German within the next couple of years. So with all of this, there is really a shift in the distributor landscape, and asset managers, of course, need to keep up with it. At the same time, we see a rise in the active ETFs, and even the end consumers and the distributors, they are much more fee sensitive than they were a couple of years ago. And this has a huge impact on the margins that the asset managers are operating under. And this operational efficiency is no longer a nice to have. It is really something that every asset manager needs to look into. Otherwise, within the next 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of them will be wiped out of the market, because it is becoming much more an economies of scale game for asset managers. And you already see this left and right. You have asset managers consolidating, you have distributors consolidating, and you have platforms consolidating. And the reason behind that is, of course, very often profitability and economies of scale. Last item is, of course, the digital transformation. If you want to make use of AI and any modern technology, What you absolutely must have is real-time intelligence and a proper data governance, because whatever you build, whether that is in-house LLMs or in-house AIs or other systems, they will only be as good as the data that you feed into them. And if we go to the next slide, and then if we drill this further down, there are, of course, also not just challenges, but also actual costs and risks that you are running as an asset manager if you're not investing into a proper client book of record. So here, the first and foremost that we can mention is, of course, the revenue leakage. If you have unallocated positions, for instance, or if you have double remunerations due to the fact that you have no clear visibility who the underlying distributor is, that can have an immediate impact on your P&L, and it is very common to have 2 to 5% of your margins lost on an annual basis just due to the fact that someone is claiming rebates retroactively, or you didn't understand the full hierarchy of the distribution chain. Then one of the things that hopefully has not happened to anyone on the call is regulatory fines and audit findings. So if you don't have a proper client book of record where you understand the distribution hierarchies, where you have a full track record of all the subscription redemptions and can clearly identify which asset belongs to which intermediary and which end investor, and if any of the auditors or regulators spots this and would ask you to look into it, that's of course always something that we want to avoid from ever occurring. So it's always better to proactively invest in those things rather than waiting for an external regulator or auditor to come up with any findings around that. And the last item, when we talk to asset managers and looking into the complex fee calculations, for instance, we hear that still a lot of the rebate calculations are actually done in spreadsheets and are relatively complex due to new products that you are launching, whether that is in the private markets segment or in new markets and new territories, or creative deals proposed by the sales team. So all these different formulas and calculation methods, calculation bases, they need to be captured somewhere. And of course, we don't want to run a risk by operating this in Excel spreadsheets where any kind of little fat finger could have a significant impact on our P&L. And if we go to the next slide, thank you. So now that we have laid out some of the problems that are related to the client book of record and why every asset manager should have a client book of record, let's take a look into the next phase and get a better understanding what we really mean by client book of record. So the client book of record, if we break this down into 3 pillars and keep it very easy and simple, the first thing that we want to do is, of course, identify our clients. So that means that we basically really want to get an understanding of every distributor which sits in our distribution network, and we can clearly have a client master linked to the positions that we are receiving. The next thing is that we want to understand the distribution hierarchies. So as we've said in the beginning, over the last couple of years with the consolidation of the platforms, the direct relationships where we have a direct distributor has decreased. Most of the distributors are now coming in via platforms, ICSDs or other aggregators. And this means that we are now dealing with more complex distribution hierarchy. So For this element, we really want to get an understanding on who sits where, in which layer of the distribution hierarchy, and which AUM belongs to which distributor and is invested in which in a particular product. And the last is sort of the output of all of this, because once we can identify the client and we can clearly place them in a distribution hierarchy, then of course we can also track and monitor everything that they are doing, which means we can track and monitor the subscription and the redemptions, and we can also track and monitor how we are performing as an asset manager in terms of cross-selling, upselling, and keeping our clients engaged. And if we go to the next slide. And this is sort of a segue how we look into the client book of record and who should be looking into client book of records. And initially we mentioned that this is a bit of a domain for the middle and the back office, so under the COO. And of course, the CEO is, or the CEO office is of course one of the key parties from every asset manager that is looking into it. Ultimately, they are trying to reduce the friction and the managed operational risks. They are the ones responsible for being able to scale and support the growth and keeping it all together. And also, they're usually the ones, if an auditor comes or if a regulator comes, that needs to be ready and needs to have all the information at hand. But as we said, they are not the only ones dealing with this domain. It is also the front office, which is which should have access to all the data and all the information from the client book of records, because they are ultimately the ones that are driving the client engagement, and they need to have the transparency of the data. They need to have the real-time access to the data to basically spot if there are any outflows or if there are any upselling or cross-selling opportunities, and if some of the deals have gone from profitable relationships into the negatives and need to be renegotiated or something. And the good news here is that those are really not competing priorities anymore. So within 2026, you can really meet both of these requirements from the COO and the head of distribution, and it should be a shared responsibility between those two to look and invest into a client book of record. Just checking the time a little bit. I think we're quite good here, and we're moving on to the next section of today's webinar. So now we're going to give you a bit of an overview of Eduto and how Eduto can help you as a client book of record. And when you think about Eduto or a client book of record, it should basically do two things. So first of all, what we want to do is to manage the data. So it needs to be a data management system, because ultimately you are, as an asset manager, sitting on an awful lot of distribution data. And we'll talk about that in a second, but all that data needs to be normalized and standardized. And once we have that, then we can move on to the second part that Eduto fulfills, and that is acting as a true middleware or as an operating system. Because once you have all the data, then of course you want to be able to manage that data and use that data in a meaningful way. And you want to have the data governance and the control functions built directly into the system. And if we go to the next slide. So now within the next two slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about the data management system and the operating system and how Eduto fulfills these two roles. So here you see what Eduto does as a data management system. So as we said, Eduto or any CBOR will become your golden source of truth for any type of distribution data. So it needs to be a system or an application basically where you plug in multiple data feeds and data sources. So the primary is, of course, when you're working with multiple transfer agents, that you plug in the data feeds from all the TAs. So that gives us the reference data There you have all the accounts, the holdings, you have the omnibus information, you have the subscription and redemptions, you have the corporate actions, and so on and so forth. The next source of data is typically coming from your external partners. That can be platform partners, it can be custodians, it can be direct distributors and other intermediaries. And they typically send these platform statements which contain more information. Sometimes they contain subscription and redemption, sometimes they contain calculation results, whatever it is, but they're all coming in different files, different formats, different frequencies. But we need to make use of all of them. And then last but not least, there's all the information that you have within other operating systems and other internal, external data sources, data warehouses. So one example, for instance, is a CRM system or the data that sits in your distribution agreements. And of course, we don't want to neglect that data because that is useful information, and that is also data that we are needing that we require for further downstream processing. So once we have all that data and all that is plugged in into Adjuto or into your client book of record, we can publish that data and really create a single source of truth for it. And that's really the data management part of Adjuto. Now on this slide, I'm just briefly going to walk you through the operating part of it and how our data management module looks like. So here we have structured this into three pillars. So basically on your left side, you see the data ingestion. So those are all the data sources that you have. And as an asset manager, of course, you have your product data, you have your CRM data. And here, as a quick side note, if you don't have a client master or a product master, we have recently acquired Fundipedia, so that is an excellent source for this type of product data or client data, and we could easily feed that into Adjuto. The next sources that we already mentioned is all the TAs, the CSDs, the platforms, and so on, so the external data that we need to feed into Adjuto. Then we want to enrich that data and feed in more subscription redemptions holdings. Another side note here, Info, we have recently acquired Finscape. They have excellent data from all the UK platforms where you can see subscription redemptions, holdings, and so on and so forth. Again, brilliant source for Adjuto, easily plugged into Adjuto. Of course, you don't need to have Fundipedia or Finscape, but if you have it, it's a nice to have, reduces the implementation time. Other sources, rebates and distribution agreements or dynamic static data. All of that is ingested through our smart integration module or our AI module, and that helps us to standardize and normalize the data. And then you have the middle section, which is basically where we have the operating capabilities and where we have all the workflows and the control functions. So for us, this starts with AML and KYC. You want to have all that information in one place so that your compliance team is no longer disconnected from any of your other teams. Then we have within Adjuto all the clients and the accounts. We have all the products. We have all the distribution agreements with all the metadata from these agreements. We have the historical holdings. We have the subscription and redemptions. We have the omnibus information, but we can also break down the omnibus information and split these omnibus accounts quite easily. And then we can run all kinds of fee calculations. We can run that for receivables and payables. So receivables could be management fees and mandate fees, for instance. And then on the payables, of course, the typical rebates, the platform fees, sales commissions, TPM commissions, whatever it might be, any type of commission that you need to pay eventually. And we can run all of that, of course, in Adjuto. And Marina will briefly demonstrate some of that. And then, of course, you also might need to do some reconciliation. So for instance, if Clearstream, Allfunds, Euroclear, whatever, is sending you some calculations and you want to reconcile that against what you have calculated in Adjuto, we can do that and automate these processes. But we can also process invoices and payments directly out of Adjuto. And the last part, which is where the circle ends, is basically the dashboard and reporting. So this is the MI element that we talked about. Adjuto has custom built and in-app built nice looking dashboards and reporting where you can access key information quite easily. But of course, we don't want to leave it just in Adjuto. It is a nice and intuitive interface and operating system, but we all know that you have other stakeholders and other systems that could benefit from the data that you have in your client book of record. And of course, we can feed the enriched data from Adjuto back into your CRM system, into your accounting system, so that you can run accruals and forecasts and budgets and so on and so forth in your accounting system. And of course, any other in-house system or external system. And we can even build a feedback loop back to Finscape and Fundipedia. So this is a broad overview of the operating system and Adjuto. And now Marina is going to demonstrate how Adjuto looks like and what it can really do.
Thank you, Stefan. Okay, sorry, I think I don't hear an echo. As you can see, Adjuto is a web-based application. It is hosted in Azure, and I would like to just add one thing before we move on to the actual demo. Is, as said Stefan, Adjuto is not only data management, but as well an operating system where you can automate workflows, but you can as well manage the roles and authorization for your team members, and you can decide who is authorized to do what within the system, which is quite important. So going back to the landing page, as you can see on the right side, we have a number of dashboards that are displayed on the screen. Those dashboards are completely configurable by each user, so they can change it anytime. And basically, we have two types of reports showing up here. Some key performance indicators, where in this example, we can see the global AUM, the net collections, some growth per sector and salespersons with the fees that have been paid and the fees collected. You have some segmentation like charts by client classification, some segmentation per salesperson, but as well, you can see some more operational dashboards where you can see some missing holdings per product, which will allow the operational user to act on it and actually do some investigation directly logging into the system. And if we go up on the left side, we have some main indicators. We will not go through all of them, but maybe we'll have few. So we can see directly the outstanding due diligences, the pending transactions, and you can allocate those, some outstanding remunerations. And on this screen, you can see some of these automations of the workflow where the user can validate directly a calculation, issue an invoice, and so on and so forth. They can as well delegate those actions. And the outstanding invoices, another example of the workflow where you can send directly to the accounting, to payment, and so on and so forth. Important item as well that you have already available in Adjuto many alerts, which are like some processing batches warnings, informations, errors that are alerted, and you can configure it without help any type of alerts that you would like to put, and that can be done directly on this dashboard, or we can send them as well to your system. As well, some integration reports. Any integration will come here with a report, and we will see that a bit later on. So what is important to know is that the Adjuto was built around 4 main pillars, and those are, as already showed by Stefan, the first one is how actually we will build in the data into Adjuto, and the first set of the data will be the client data, where we will either connect Adjuto to your CRM or any other client master that you have, or if it's in Excel, then we'll just ingest it into Adjuto with the client information, the contact, the accounts, the salespersons. You can as well manage different tasks and actions that can be directly done through Adjuto and automated with marketing campaigns. So once we have the client data into Adjuto, we will move on feeding with the product data that can come the same either from a product master, or it can be built directly into the Adjuto with the static data and the dynamic data, as you can see, the prices, the fees, and so on. And once we have sorted out the client and the product data, and when I'm saying like product, important to know that Eduto can manage UCITS, funds, private assets, real assets, and so on and so forth. So basically, we will move on to the first module, which is the client book of record that we've discussed extensively already. So Eduto will be connected to all of your TAs, where we will receive on a daily basis all the transactions with the subscriptions and redemptions, and having this first set of data. Eduto will be calculating holding. We will be sourcing those as well, and then enrich it with the second set of the data coming from the distributors, which are, for example, the statement of holdings that they're sending, and then we have a clear and transparent mapping of the client book of record. So once that is done, within Eduto, you can move on with the fees calculation, and within Eduto, you can calculate any type of receivables, like management fees and payables, such as platform fees, rebates, intermediation fees, and the reconciliation can be done on 3 levels, as well as the invoicing part is managed directly from here. Now let's move to a concrete example, and we will take the example of the Clickstream Omnibus account and how, with the use of Eduto, we will be able to get more transparency and enrich the data coming from the TA. We are now on the account page. You can see it here on the top of the Clickstream, with some information about the sub-accounts, the sales, which we will not go through it now, but we will go directly to the holdings page. On the holdings page, this view that you can see, it's basically the data that it's received from the TA with the daily positions on the Omnibus account of the 5 products. First item to mention is if we click on one of the positions, you can see that behind this position, we have all the historical data of the transactions with the subscriptions, the transfers, the redemptions, and that can go from the inception date. So let's see now how with the add of Eduto you can get the underlying information for each of those Omnibus accounts, and how with the help of our smart integration module, we can do it quite easy. So we're going to the integration page, and what we will do, first of all, on the screen, we'll show you a few of the statement of holdings that we all receive. So one of these examples is Attrax. As we can see, it is in German, and we do have information about the products, the date of the file, the AUM, and so on and so forth. On the all funds file that is received as well, you can see that it looks differently, although the information received is the same. It talks about the account, the underlying sub-distributors, the positions. And the last case, which we would like to show you, it's Clickstream, which it's like you can see it's displayed even differently. So you receive hundreds of these kind of files, all looking differently. And the good news is that with Eduto, you don't need to bother anymore on standardizing though before ingesting. So what you will simply do, you will drag and drop the file into Eduto. And you can see, oh, sorry, I will just close the file and we'll drag and drop it again. And you can see that into Eduto will automatically match all the data points that have been identified in the file, and with each like machine learning capabilities, he will pick up the best candidate for the date, for the account, for the Omnibus account, the ISIN, and the positions. So that's the first information that you can see here. A second one, what you can see is that there is an action that is required, and Eduto have not identified an account. And that can be done either automatically, where we can set bit, or you can do it manually. And I will show you how actually the manual way of linking an account to an Omnibus account, it's done very easy. So for example, in the Clickstream file, we know that this is an UBS account. So we'll choose the UBS Italia. You can just simply change the name if you want, and link that sub-account to the Omnibus account of Clickstream into the system. When that is done, you simply press and save, and we will be going back to our integration report, and we will recycle the integration that have been done. And you can see at the last line, now Eduto have identified the account, and the good news is that it's sufficient to do it once, and the next time Eduto will identify it on its own, the data. Going back to our Omnibus account view, and you can see that TAU. So basically now, once we have uploaded the statement of holdings, if we apply the omnibus split between the filtering options with Adjuto and the sub-accounts, you will see the full scope of the sub-distributor under Clearstream omnibus account. And if to have it a more nice visual look, you can see it here. We can go to as many layers as you have within your distribution chain. So that can be Clearstream with a sub-distributor of Clearstream, and then with a sub-distributor of, for example, HSBC in this case, and so on and so forth. The number of layers is unlimited. And you can afterwards perform calculation of the fees on each level. So that can be done on the Clearstream highest level or on the sub-distributor or sub-distributor level, depending on your agreements. We will not go into details for the fees management part. We'll be happy to do a demo if you're interested in, but we would like to show you one of the reports that is very much appreciated by our clients. It's actually the profitability analysis that Stefan spoke about. So since in Adjuto, we calculate all the collected fees, like the management fees, as we said, and then rebates, platform fees, all the remuneration, you can, within this reporting, see that you can manage in Adjuto, track and monitor per each partner and distributor and platform the profitability on that net part. And then every, I don't know, sales or even the management of the of your team can actually action on that, and by using this information, renegotiate the agreement or check whether something is wrong, and then that will give an insightful information about the relationship of each distributor. And that information you can see as well on the fund level. It can be done as well on the country level, so how profitable is each country, as well as the fees level. So we'll be very happy to go into more detailed demo. Just let us know, and handing over to Stefan now.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. And mindful of the time, I'm going to be quite quick on the remaining few slides. So Marina, do you mind to just press the hide button on the pop-up there?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. So we basically have now seen the challenges that most of the asset managers are facing. We have seen how client book of records can help. We've had an initial overview of Adjuto, and as you've seen, it's a really intuitive and pretty good looking interface, but it's also a super powerful application which really streamlines a lot of the processes and boosts the operational efficiency of the asset managers. And within a webinar with 30-45 minutes, we can, of course, never cover everything, but we want to leave you with a few things and hopefully have conversations with all of you over the next couple of weeks and month, and maybe even a client's relationship over the next couple of years. So the main points why every asset manager should invest into it is, of course, you need to have a single view and a single source of truth for all that distribution data. The next part, and we haven't covered it today that much because we focused on the client book of record, but the client book of record lays the foundation for a lot of the downstream processes and operations. And that's, of course, particularly important for the fee calculations. With a good and clean client book of record, you can avoid having unallocated positions, wrong calculations, and manual errors, and a lack of transparency, and so on and so forth. And so, as it always is, sometimes you get away with it for a short period of time where the financial impact is not as significant. Sometimes you even pay out less than you have to, but eventually these losses accumulate, and we don't want that to happen. Same for the audit readiness. With Adjuto, you have, of course, role-based access that Marina mentioned. You have 4I principle, and you have a full audit trail of everything that is happening, and everything that you have in Eduto can easily be extracted. So you'll be ready for any type of audit. And we mentioned also in the beginning, asset management is becoming more and more an economies of scale game. So you need to be ready to scale up, and you want to scale your overall distribution network without recruiting or doubling your middle and your back office. And with these few points, we would almost end it here today, just in terms of next steps or potential next steps. We have put together a comprehensive self-assessment type of tool set, which helps us and you to build the business case, and we'd be more than happy to share that with you. As Marina said, we'll be more than happy to give you a more detailed view of Eduto. So if you want to get in contact with us, you find our contact details here. I think we also have your contact details, so we might follow up with you as well. And then if you happen to be in London on the 4th of February, please join us over there. We have an exclusive roundtable event over there. So that's really a discussion amongst peers going into CBOR, standardizing distribution data, and so on and so forth. And seats are limited, but if you are going to be in London next week, and if you would like to have a coffee with us, please contact us, and we'd be more than happy to welcome you during that event as well. With that said, on behalf of Marina and myself, thank you very much for joining today. We know it's really early in the year, and hopefully we will have some conversations throughout the year. Until then, all the best, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.